Hello and welcome to Smash Hit Sports. I'm your host, Cody. We had another absolutely electric college football Saturday, and I have Jason Gold on the show today to break it all down. Jason is the co-founder of ChampionsRound, an app that I mentioned in last week's show, and I had Steph on. Jason is the host of the Gambling with Gold podcast. He does the Daily Dozen. You can find Jason all over the internet, and I'll have all of his stuff tagged below. You'll be able to see his ad on the screen. But Jason, welcome to the show, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Cody, thank you so much for having me. Pleasure to be here, ready to talk some college football for Week 9. Let's go, baby.
Oh, and we had just an absolute awesome Week 8 going into, or awesome Week 9 going into Week 10. It is a beautiful, beautiful slate. And I'm going to start with your Ducks last because I know you're a hell of an Oregon fan. But we're going to go Clemson 27, Syracuse 21. This is a game that Syracuse looked like they were going to win pretty much the entire first half. The second half was very meh by Clemson. They finally benched DJ Uiagalelei, brought in Cade Klubnik, who is their all-star, quarterback phenom that I expected to start much earlier than this, to be honest. What did you think of that game? Because I don't think Clemson is up with the rest of the big boys in college football right now.
They're not, but unfortunately they have a relatively clear path to the playoff right now, which I'm sure that we are all not looking forward to seeing them lose by 20 in the first round of that playoff. But my biggest question for them is, what do you do at quarterback now? I know that, they said after the game that DJ is still the guy. He'll be the one that's starting on November 5th against Notre Dame. But he looked trash. He was like his 2021 form. Are they really going to risk it at this point where they have Notre Dame, Louisville, Miami, and then South Carolina? I'm praying to God that Spencer Rattler comes through and knocks off Clemson so we don't have to deal with this shit in the playoffs. But I don't know. What do you think that they should do at quarterback right now, heading into the Notre Dame game with a bye week in between?
Especially the fact that they have the bye week in between. Dabo's decision to go with Klubnik tells me everything that I need to know. They don't have confidence in DJ to bring them back. They had confidence in Klubnik to win that game. If you are trying to win the college football playoffs, which is Clemson's goal each and every year, they're not a team that's out here trying to, make a New Year's Six bowl. You have to start the guy that you were the most confident in. And that decision to pull DJ at that point told me that Dabo has more confidence in Cade than he does in DJ. I would start Cade going forward, especially considering you have the bye week. You have 2 weeks to prep for Notre Dame. This is a phenomenal opportunity to get Cade the start against a Notre Dame team that, quite frankly, does have a good defense. Offensively, they're one of the ugliest teams I've ever seen, but I love that as a fan. I think Dabo has a tough decision to make, but I'm going with Cade. I don't think I'm sticking with DJ.
It's tough for me because I do think that inside of DJ somewhere, and we've seen flashes of it, is a really good quarterback. There's a reason why he was the number one quarterback in the country coming out of high school. However, he's not played like it. He's a turnover machine. It seems like in these big moments he kind of wilts a little bit. And Cade, he didn't play great by any means, but he was a different pace, different spark that they needed to get through that Syracuse game. Against Notre Dame, really, really good defense. Going to be quite the environment. I'm really torn on what I would do. I think I would probably go Cade, but if they trust DJ, it'll be interesting to see. I'm circling that South Carolina game. I really think there's a chance that South Carolina is going to knock them off before we get to the ACC championship game.
Yeah, and I think the entire country is hoping for that because I do not they're going to put an undefeated Clemson team in over a one-loss Tennessee that doesn't make it to the SEC championship or a one-loss Michigan that doesn't make it to the SEC or the Big Ten championship. And I just don't think that Clemson is better than either of those two teams. So I'm hoping that they get knocked off, but we'll see. The refs in that game I just thought were
That's atrocious.
They were bad. And I understand that, if you want to say that they were bad against Clemson and biased, which I kind of agree with, but they were just bad the entire game. I think college football, and especially the ACC has an officiating problem. It's been bad all year. It was bad in North Carolina, Miami. It's now bad in Clemson, Syracuse. I don't know. ACC refereeing, get it together. But let's go to a Big Ten matchup that's quite the barn burner. Ohio State 54, Iowa 10. Just an absolute ass kicking. Is Kirk Ferentz gone after this year?
I mean, he's had a bunch of these years where he can't score on offense. He still runs this offense from 1972, just a bunch of corn-fed boys running 3 yards ahead and nothing happening. So no, I don't think that he'll be gone, but I can't believe the fact that they're running this offense in 2022. It is... Have they ever heard of the spread in Iowa? Like, either school. Because Iowa State runs a crap offense, too. Like, okay, I understand you're in the Midwest and not a whole lot's going on, and maybe the information's a little slow to get to you, but you do realize that other teams that you're playing are running a much better offense than you are. At some point, get it together. Get someone else in there. Get a quarterback that's a little bit mobile. Let's spread it out a little bit. Let's have a little fun.
And that's the thing, too, is like they said, which the only spread that they have in Iowa is butter, but
that's a good line.
I've been waiting on that since you said it. But the thing with, like, they were going into this season like Spencer Petras is our guy. There were plenty of quarterbacks that are better than Spencer Petras in the transfer portal that they did not make a move to get. And Alex Padilla doesn't look to be that much better either. They have 7 offensive touchdowns through 7 games. They look absolutely terrible. And here's where I think Kirk Ferentz is in a tough spot. Something is going to have to budge here. Their offensive coordinator is his son, Brian Ferentz. In any other program, he would have been fired weeks ago after putting up a 7-point performance against South Dakota State in which they scored 2 safeties and a field goal. Like, I don't understand why he's not gone. Actually, I do understand why he's not gone. It's nepotism because his dad doesn't want to fire his son as a head coach. I legitimately think his refusal to do so will get Kirk Ferentz fired at some point. I don't know what his buyout is, but Iowa it's one thing to be bad and lose football games, but to be like, we lost a shootout or like we lost Iowa is just disgusting football to watch.
I would say the only way out for Kirk Ferentz, he's not going to fire his son, and I assume that he doesn't want to be fired from a school that he's been at for 20-plus years. I would say he's in that Belichick-Saban kind of circle, so he needs to go ahead and get his son a job at one of those programs and say, it's an upgrade for you, a.k.a. we're gently pushing you out the door. We need to move in a new direction. Here's a offensive analyst job under Saban, or here's a wide receiver coach for the Patriots job. Something like that to get him out the door. But yeah, I do agree. If he keeps him as offensive coordinator and we see maybe another year of this, could lead to the demise of the entire Ferentz family at Iowa.
Yeah, and it's tough to see. I was out there for the Nevada game earlier this year, and they are a awesome fan base. I mean, I tell you what, they might not be great at football, but they can absolutely delete some Busch Lights. Let's go to the Big 12. Oklahoma State 41, Texas 34, a game that I predicted this upset, although I'm not happy about it because Texas was my pick to win the Big 12 at the beginning of the year. This was far and above the worst game that Quinn Ewers has played all season. Are we concerned about Texas going forward, or is this one of those one-off, they played a bad game, they'll survive in advance?
Well, I think that something may have happened at halftime, and I'm worried about potentially an injury or maybe just the moment being too big for Ewers in the second half, but they put up, 34, 33 in the first half? He played great
32.
in the first half. Yeah, so I'm not so worried about that. He played great, and I think that Oklahoma State is, and we'll talk about it a little bit later when we get to the Kansas State game, but I think that they're pretty fake, if you ask me. I think it's just it's an anomaly game. Ewers is going to be fine, I think, long term. Sark has these issues in the second half, though. I was looking at the stats. Sark in the second half with Texas this year, first half, plus 94 point differential, plus 28 in the second half. They've been melting down a little bit. We saw it in the Alabama game. Yeah. We saw it against Oklahoma State. It might just be more of a Sark issue. I wouldn't be worried too much about Quinn Ewers long term.
Yeah, and when he was on, like last week, dimes. That Oklahoma game that drops in a bucket. He throws a sexy ass football when he's on, but he was just off. The turnovers seemed a little uncharacteristic, but I'm not worried about Texas. I still think they'll finish the year out fine. But I think their hopes of any Big 12 championship kind of died
definitely
this weekend. Speaking of fraudulent teams, Ole Miss is a fraud. LSU 45, Ole Miss 20. I have been saying this for weeks. Ole Miss was not a top 10 team. They just hadn't played anybody. And say what you will about LSU and Brian Kelly being terrible against top 10 teams. They brought it. LSU looked good. Jaden Daniels looked good. Is LSU legitimate?
It's a Brian Kelly team, man. It is a Brian Kelly team, and it's starting to take on that identity. You look at his second half adjustments against Ole Miss. Absolutely stopped that. Ole Miss scored 0 points in the second half, and I think that they finished on a 49-3 run, 48, some ridiculous number to close out that game. They played great. Brian Kelly is just, he's a top 10 coach year in and year out. You can hate the guy. You think he's a weirdo. I certainly think both. But the guy gets it done when it comes to game management and coaching. He's getting the most out of Jaden Daniels, a guy that I didn't really like at Arizona State. Got to run for, I think, 123 yards this week. He's starting to play a lot better. I think that LSU, and they control their own destiny in the SEC West. I'm not saying that they're going to do anything special there, but I do think that they're going to pose a challenge for some of these teams down the rest of the season. It'll be interesting to see, but I agree with you. Ole Miss, a little bit of farce. The fact that we're ranked 7-7-0, I think we're going to see them lose a couple of games, including probably this weekend coming up.
I agree. I do want to LSU, their next game, Saturday, November 5th, night game in Death Valley against Alabama. Do they have a shot? I think they can at least make it a good game, because say what you will about Alabama, they are not the Alabama of old where they don't have any flaws. They are still a phenomenal, phenomenal football team. Let's not get that twisted. But they do have flaws. Do we think LSU has any sort of shot against Alabama?
I would say that LSU at home, at night, in Death Valley, has a shot against anyone. You could put me in quarterback. I don't know. That is a scary, scary environment to play in, which, especially when you have a defense that just gave up 52 to Tennessee, and it looks like LSU's offense is starting to come around. So, yes, is there a shot? Absolutely. Do I still think that Bama will win that game? Yeah, probably. But Brian Kelly, LSU, on the way up, I could see it happening for sure.
Love it. As a Brian Kelly hater, I hope not, but it is what it is. Would be good for my win total bet. Would be good for my win total bet on LSU at the beginning of the season.
What'd you get on that? It's like over 8.5 or something like that?
I got him at 8 even.
Very
so
nice.
I feel at least, at worst case scenario, I feel like we got a push coming. South Carolina, Texas A&M. A weird game. I thought South Carolina, quite like how Spencer Rattler played earlier in the year, I thought this was going to be a team that was basically going to be irrelevant all season. Texas A&M, a preseason top 10 team. We're now through 7 weeks of football, 8 weeks of football. Texas A&M has a losing record. Jimbo's buyout is like $95 million. What do you do if you are an Aggie fan? How do you stop yourself from just not watching the rest of the season?
Yeah, I don't know what you do about A&M, although I do think that they're going to end up winning this weekend. Jimbo's not going anywhere. I don't care how much money you got at Texas A&M. You're not probably getting a better coach than Jimbo Fisher. He's still got, he's still recruiting top 5 classes. He's going to put together at some point. I still trust it. He needs to bring in some new assistants, some new coordinators probably, redo the system a little bit. He's got to get one of these 5-star quarterbacks in the door that can really play, probably someone with some mobility. They certainly are paying enough to players to get one in the door at some point. I would kind of just stick with the plan for now. You kind of eat this year, move on. But that defense is legitimate. And anytime that you're playing at home, I don't care who you're playing, that defense at home plays, and I think that Jimbo can get it done this weekend against Ole Miss.
I agree, and that's a game that I have lined up on the outlook for this week. But it's what my concern is with Jimbo is I think that they can tolerate a 7-5, 66 bowl season, whatever. What I think is really going to start to bring into question when it comes to Jimbo is if he starts losing these recruits, because that's always what he's had is, hey, we have some of the best NIL, backing from a recruiting standpoint. We've had these number 1 recruiting classes. If they start to lose some of those big-name recruits, either they start to have guys transfer out or they start to have guys decommit, that's when I think the waters get a little rougher for Jimbo. I know Texas A&M is, swimming in money down there, but $95 million is a lot of money to not pay a guy to coach your football team.
It's worth noting to me, and I think it's interesting. So Texas A&M has had really good recruiting classes for, even going back to Kevin Sumlin, whatever. Obviously, they had Johnny Manziel win the Heisman there. They've never really done anything. Okay, so what are the expectations for this program? If their boosters think that they're going to turn into Alabama, guess what? It just isn't happening. It's never happened there. You don't have the history. You have these schools every once in a while, and I think that my school was part of it for a point in time, and I'm not sure that they'll ever get quite back to that can break through on a national stage and stay there. Clemson did it, right? Clemson was kind of no one really thought of them. Dabo got them through, and now they're a national brand. Texas A&M is a national brand, but they don't have a national brand for winning. They have a national brand for paying players. Okay, so you got to figure out what you are as a program. Do you want to go 10-2 every year? Do you want to compete with Alabama? You may need to pour even more resources into this thing to figure out if you're actually this program or not. Because you're in the SEC. You're only competing with the big boys. Can you really do it? Do you have the guys?
And I don't know if they have a whole hell of a lot of time to figure it out, because guess what? Texas and Oklahoma are coming here in the next couple of years too.
Yep.
And when it comes down to who is going to be, the Alabama's challenger in the SEC West, I think Texas and Oklahoma might have a better shot than Texas A&M if they don't get the ship righted here pretty quickly.
Absolutely.
But keeping it in Texas, TCU 38, Kansas 28. I have no idea how to evaluate this TCU team, because every game they could have lost every game that they've played on their schedule damn near. They could have lost to SMU. They could have lost to Kansas State, but Adrian Martinez got hurt. They could have lost to Oklahoma State, but they came back in double overtime. Is TCU good, or are they just going on a hell of a run here? Because I can't figure it out.
Well, they've beaten 4 teams that have lost their starting quarterback this year. So, yes.
That's insane.
Yes.
What a run.
They are the luckiest team in college football right now. Now, are they good? Yes, they're good. And I think that Sonny Dykes has a really good offensive scheme for them and their players. He's done a great job in year 1. But they're definitely fraudulent in terms of being 7-0 and being thought of as a potential playoff contender. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they will get tripped up at least once on the way out. And I do think, depending on, we'll talk about it a little bit, but I do think that this week is interesting to look at depending on what the quarterback situation is at Kansas State.
I agree 100%. The thing with TCU that is I am fascinated with, from a team that is hoping I have a new offensive coordinator next year, Garrett Riley, the offensive coordinator for TCU, has been nothing short of lights out. And I know that Max Duggan has been a great quarterback for them. Quentin Johnson is a phenomenal weapon on the outside. But damn, his phone is going to be ringing off the hook this offseason. I think the biggest question is he going to get a massive OC job, or is he going to get kind of a mid-level head coaching gig? I don't really know. I'll ask you, Jason. If you had to pick, would you rather be an offensive coordinator for a program like Notre Dame or Texas A&M or an Auburn, or be the head coach at a team like Nebraska, Wisconsin? I don't know who else is really in the well, I guess Auburn.
Auburn's probably going to go Matt Rule for $130 million. It depends. I think that if I really liked the quarterback at one of these big programs, and I was all in on him, I could turn this guy into a Heisman candidate. This is what Cliff Kingsbury did at Texas A&M, right? He went. Yep. I don't know if he thought about this before, but he got Johnny Manziel. He turned him into a Heisman guy. Went out, got a next job the next year. Okay, so do you think that if you get a job at Notre Dame, that you can turn their starting quarterback, whatever 5-star guy they have coming in, or whoever they have now, into a Heisman guy? Do you think that you could do that at A&M? Do you think you could do it at Florida or any of these big schools that need to upgrade their offense? Or do you like the situation? Nebraska, I would never fucking go to. Nebraska is old news. Scott Frost had everything that you could possibly want, all the money in the world. No, it's not happening. Wisconsin's a little bit of a different story for me. If you get the Wisconsin job, I think that's more of a national brand than Nebraska is. So I guess it depends on the situation.
Wow. maybe it's because of the fact that I'm like younger, but Nebraska was never good in my lifetime.
Yeah.
They won a national championship in 1997. I was 2. Like that doesn't. To me, Nebraska has always been meh, and I understand that like that is like Wisconsin has Green Bay and the Bucks. Like Nebraska is Nebraska's team, but that being said, like how are in today's national landscape of how college football is, how are you convincing kids to come to Lincoln?
Exactly.
That is my question, right? So, I agree. I would take Wisconsin over them as well, but it's interesting. I think Garrett Riley's going to have a lot of people, knocking on his door this offseason. But let's talk about the game of the weekend. Right. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I think the better question is, because I don't think that he's capable of getting like the Wisconsin job. I think it would be more like, will he be the offensive coordinator at Texas A&M, or will he get a job at like some MAC school? Like I'd probably take the OC job. Yeah,
for sure. If it's not Power 5, I would take the OC for sure. But let's talk about the game of the weekend. College game day, Oregon 45, UCLA 30, scenes in Oregon. They brought out the breast cancer jerseys. They looked good, start to finish. Bo Nix looked phenomenal. Quite possibly the best version of Bo Nix I think we have ever seen. What were your thoughts on that game?
It's interesting on Bo Nix because I forgot who was calling the game, but it was Heward. I'll always block out the Heward names because they all went to Washington, which means that I'm supposed to hate them. He said that he was talking to scouts at halftime who were watching the game. Have you ever seen Bo Nix like this? They all said no. He looks like a real NFL prospect, which is shocking if you ever watched him at Auburn. And even if you watched him in the Georgia game, he is absolutely eating these Pac-12 defenses up. And, it might be a home road split thing. He was always good at home with Auburn. He's crushing it in Eugene at home. And we know that Austin Stadium is almost impossible for anyone to play for. They've won 24 straight there. He looked great. He looks really comfortable. He looks really happy. He looks like all of the weight of Auburn and his father and that legacy is off of his back. He's just going out there and slinging the rock. I was doing my Heisman rankings earlier. I have him 6th right now. So I fully think that he's in this thing.
I don't think that is unfair. Like, obviously you're an Oregon fan. I don't think that's biased at all. I think that is a very legitimate, like, I would put him right up next to that top 5 because if you take away that one damn Georgia game, they have looked phenomenal offensively, start to finish. And the biggest thing with Bo Nix is he's not turning the ball over anymore.
Yeah.
That was his biggest problem at Auburn was the turnovers. We always knew that he was capable of making plays, but now that he's not turning the ball over, that offense is humming.
Absolutely. 49 points a game since the Georgia game in the last 6. They've won all 6, obviously. Bo, 17 touchdowns, 1 interception through the air. He's only taken 1 sack, which is great for him, but also Oregon probably has the best offensive line in college football right now. 58 rush yards per game. He's been awesome. So my Heisman rankings right now, you tell me if you agree or disagree with this. I got Hendon Hooker number 1. I got C.J. Stroud number 2. Bryce Young number 3. I got Blake Corum from Michigan, the running back, number 4. And then I have a tie close between Caleb Williams and Bo Nix at 5.
I don't hate that at all. I really don't. I would actually argue Bo Nix over Caleb Williams because I think Bo Nix has had a greater direct contribution to his team's success than what Caleb Williams does because I think Caleb Williams is, don't get me wrong, he's phenomenal, but I think USC has more around him than what Bo Nix has. But Oregon's offensive line being number 1 in the country. I personally would put Michigan probably, but I don't hate that take. I don't hate that take at all.
Maybe pass protection. 1 sack over 7 games, including the Georgia game. And that sack didn't even happen in the Georgia game. They gave up 0 sacks against Georgia, which is insane.
That's absurd.
They got blown the fuck out. But no sacks against Georgia is still wild.
Yeah, that's absolutely insane. I would have never predicted that. So how are we feeling about Dan Lanning 1 year into the new gig? There have been a lot of interesting first-year head coaches. Sonny Dykes has looked phenomenal. Cristobal, not so much. How are we feeling about Dan Lanning?
After the first game, it probably couldn't have gone any better. It's basically A+ since that game. And, it's the first week with your new team. You're facing your old team. They They just come off a national championship. They have the best players in the country. Maybe it's the Oregon fan
at a neutral site.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, you're playing in Athens. It's a little bit of a write-off for me. I think if they played again, the game would be much, much different, especially on a true neutral field. I think that, look, I'm trying to withhold my excitement about how good this program looks right now because we're playing a bunch of dog trash in the Pac-12, and I know how bad the Pac-12 is, especially not at the top. We'll know a lot more after they play Washington and Utah. But I do have in my soul a little bit of the Chip Kelly's first year with Oregon, where the first game was the blunt punch. They lose to Boise State at Boise State. You know, the ceiling's falling. We have to get rid of Chip Kelly already. He has no control over the program. What are we going to do? We just come off of Mike Bellotti. Everything was great with him. And then he goes 46-6 from that game on. Goes to a national championship. We know the story after that. I don't think it's quite going to be that. But I do think that everything from a program perspective looks really, really elite and first class with Dan Lanning right now.
Yeah, I think if you are an Oregon fan, you are sitting here and saying, going forward after USC and UCLA do depart the Pac-12, Oregon is the big dog moving forward. And I think that's a great spot to be in. You have Cal coming up this week. We'll talk about that game. But looking at the schedule as a whole, at Cal, at Colorado, talk about 2 cake road games. You get Washington and Utah, but you get them both at home.
Yep.
And then Oregon State. I think there's a very legitimate shot that Oregon has a chance to say, hey, if we win the Pac-12 with 1 loss against what could end up being the number 1 team in the country, what is currently the number 1 team in the country right now in Georgia, I think you have an argument for a college football playoff spot. I really do.
I will only say this from experience, having gone through these undefeated seasons with Oregon before. Since the Pac-12 started, no team has finished the Pac-12 season schedule undefeated in conference play. It has never happened. I think that we're going to
get... what a stat.
I think that we're going to get tripped up at some point. I hope it doesn't happen, believe me. And the schedule, as it looks, Cal, easy on the road probably. Colorado's definitely easy. Home versus Washington. Washington's offense is awesome. But
Michael Penix.
He's great.
God damn. He has played unbelievable.
But that defense has regressed significantly since the start of the season, and they might be in for a rude awakening. And again, it's in Eugene, so you think, okay, they probably get a win there. Utah's going to be the toughest test of the season by far. A team that has come into Eugene and won before. Kyle Whittingham knows what the hell he's doing.
Yep.
But again, Eugene, Oregon, Austin Stadium. If the Ducks are 9-1 at that point, that crowd is going to be absolutely insane. It's going to be a tough place to play. So, and then I think the sneaky tough one at Oregon State. That is a very competent team, especially you're coming the week after. So it's Washington, Utah, Oregon State back-to-back games. If you win the first 2 at home,
in November.
If you win the first 2 at home, you think that you're riding high, and then Oregon State comes and punches you in the mouth. I think that we lose either Utah or Oregon State, unfortunately. But also, I just want to win the Pac-12 championship and go to the Rose Bowl. We have no business at this point being involved in a playoff game versus an Alabama or an Ohio State. We're going to lose by 30, or Georgia. We're going to lose by 30. I'd rather win the Rose Bowl.
I think that's fair, and if we get to see like an Oregon-Michigan Rose Bowl...
Ooh, spicy. I like that.
Scenes. I would absolutely love it. The line for this weekend's game is 17.5.
Yep.
I don't know if I'm comfortable enough taking Oregon at 17.5 on the road. I think this is we want a big game, college game day. We're coming down from that. 17.5 is a lot of points.
I would say 17.5, probably a good bet if you want to bet on Cal. My guess is the public's going to keep coming up, so you may be able to wait a little bit on this and see if you can get a little higher number. But I do think this is the ultimate. We just want a big game. First big win under Dan Lanning, the first one that really mattered for the program. Super, super sleepy spot heading down to Berkeley. I actually like a different play in this game. First half under. I think that both teams come out sleepy. Cal's offense is absolutely pathetic.
Yeah, they're miserable.
So 28 or 28.5, if you can get that number in the market, take the under in the first half. That's the way that I would probably play this game.
Love it. Last thing before we move on to next week as a whole.
Yep.
The Pac-12 as a whole. Do we have Oregon winning? If we do, who do we have them playing in the Pac-12? Because I think the Pac-12 made the correct decision in getting away from divisions.
Yeah.
You now get the 2 best teams in the conference playing for the championship. I wish we had that for the Big Ten this year. Instead, we're going to get to watch Illinois.
Yeah.
But who do we have in the Pac-12 championship, and who do you think's winning it all?
Well, my hope is that we get Oregon SC in Vegas. Send USC off right. Also, little family rivalry. My wife went to SC, so our house is fully divided, and we love going to Vegas. We got married in Vegas last year, so I'm really hoping that we get to run that one back. I think that SC they're probably going to beat UCLA too, so I think they'll probably end up the season at 11-1. Depending Notre Dame game, but that doesn't matter for the consequences of the Pac-12. Yeah. If Oregon beats Utah, it'll be Oregon. If Utah beats Oregon, it'll be Utah. So it's tough. I mean, gun to head, I'll just say Oregon and SC and put it out there in the world, and hopefully it happens. And then I'm not going to make a pick. I'm not going to make a pick there because you know who I'm picking.
I love it. I like the vibes. I like the we're feeling it. Yeah. So let's look at the best games for this coming week. We actually get to watch a really good Thursday. Who's the Thursday night NFL game this week?
Oh, my God.
Good?
Yeah, it's Buccaneers-Ravens.
Oh, okay. So that should at least be a decent game, Tom Brady, Lamar. But if you aren't going to watch that game, we get Utah at Washington State. Washington State is a 7.5-point dog at home. I like Washington State. I think they have a really, really good defense this year, or at least from what they've had, compared to what Washington State has had in the past. Utah, Cam Rising, I don't know how many times you can get away with just peppering the ball to Dalton Kincaid. So I'm going to take Washington State plus the points on Thursday night. Should be a really good game, though.
58% of the bets, 98% of the money is on Washington State in this game. This line has come down from 8.5. It is now at 7. Wow. 7 at most places. If you can grab that 7.5, I would. Washington State's offense has been a little scary. Both teams are coming off of a bye week. Yep. But Utah in the red zone has been one of the worst teams in the entire country, at least Power 5 teams in the country. This year, Washington State's defense is also elite at stopping teams in the red zone. I think it'll be a close game, tight game. I think it'll be pretty low scoring. I kind of like this play instead of doing the plus 7.5 because I trust Utah at the end of games to be able to get it done, and it scares me a little bit. 7.5 helps a little bit. Washington State first half money line. I love that play.
Ooh, I like that. I think first half plays are something that you can really take advantage of in college football. I don't think that is nearly as sharp as some of the college football lines. So Washington State money line, I like that. Saturday, I'm going to be selfish here. I got to talk about Notre Dame.
All right.
Notre Dame at Syracuse. Syracuse is a 3-point favorite. I don't believe it's the Carrier Dome. I think they got a new sponsor now, but it'll always be the Carrier Dome to me. I think Notre Dame does not come anywhere close to covering the spread. Ooh. I think they lose by 2 touchdowns. I understand that they had a great game against UNLV last week. However, watching that game, it was run, throw the ball to Michael Mayer. You can't do that against a good team. Syracuse, Dino Babers is a hell of a coach. I think they're going to be right where they need to be defensively. And if Notre Dame gets down at all in this game, they're not going to be able to keep up. So I'm going to take Syracuse with the points. I mean, I won't be betting it because I'm not going to bet against my own team, but I would take Syracuse -3.
This one's tough because 37% of the bets and 64% of the money is coming in on Notre Dame. This line has moved from plus 4.5 to plus 2.5 towards Notre Dame.
Ooh.
Everybody.
Damn, I don't know if I'd take it at 2.5.
All of the sharp money is on Notre Dame. Everybody's expecting Syracuse off of this devastating loss to Clemson to beat us another sleepy spot, and Notre Dame comes in there with their great defense and they're able to slow the game down and get a victory. Do I believe that? No. Notre Dame just lost to fucking Stanford, okay? 15-14. Disgusting game. And Stanford is, having played them and watched them the last 5 years, Stanford is horrific offensively.
Oh, they're so bad. They're so bad. They run a essentially a wishbone because they don't have any weapons.
Sorry, they lost 16-14 or they beat Notre Dame 16-14, and then they beat Arizona State 15-14. That's what you get from fucking Stanford at this point. I think that Notre Dame's going to keep this game very competitive. I think there's a chance they pull off the upset. I will not be betting this game because I think all the value's gone at 2.5. But gun to head right now, I think that I'd take reading the market. I think Notre Dame's going to win this game.
Oh, see, as a fan, I'm so glad to hear that. As somebody who is on Syracuse, I don't know how I feel. TCU at West Virginia, number 7 TCU. This seemed, I was kind of surprised when I first saw this line. West Virginia is a 7.5-point dog at home. West Virginia is feisty here. However, I'm going to take the over in this game at 68.5. I think there's going to be a billion points. West Virginia's pass defense, their secondary has not looked great all year, even from the start when Pitt kind of torched them. So I'm leaning. I will be taking the over, and I probably lean West Virginia plus 7.5. What are your thoughts on this game, which could mean a lot in the Big 12?
Is West Virginia's quarterback healthy?
JT Daniels,
is he healthy? If he's healthy, it'll be the first time in a long time that TCU's played a healthy quarterback. And 7.5 points at home, I'm definitely going to be on West Virginia in that one.
Yeah, all signs point to JT Daniels as a go. So
if he's healthy and playing, I'm betting on West Virginia. TCU has to collapse at some point. You're giving me more than a touchdown at West Virginia. Yeah, I got to do it.
Yeah, I love that. Ole Miss at A&M. You talked about this. You think A&M wins outright? I agree.
I think that
agree.
I think that they're going to win. I think it's going to be a really disgusting, low-scoring game. Ole Miss, we both think, are complete frauds. I did not like what I saw from Jackson Dart last week. I think that A&M's going to come out with a great game plan defensively. It'll be gross. It'll be ugly. It'll be like 24-21 Texas A&M. But I think that A&M gets it done.
Love that. Oregon. I like Ole Miss's offense. I just don't. I'm not a huge believer in Jackson Dart. I think their running game has actually developed really nicely this year. They have Zach Evans, who's a transfer from TCU, and then I forget who their backup guy is, but he's looked good as well. I'm just A&M, A-Chain. I think they're going to be. If this game gets turned into a rock fight, I think Texas A&M has more man to them than Ole Miss does.
Every A&M game is a rock fight.
Yeah, that is the damn truth. We get a top 15 matchup in Happy Valley. Ohio State at Penn State. Penn State is a 15.5-point dog, or at least it was when I checked last. Looks like they still are. Over under is 60.5. Ohio State has an average margin of victory of 35 points so far this season. I understand they haven't played anybody, saying their resume stinks, this, that, and the other. I think Ohio State absolutely boat races Penn State this weekend.
Penn State's offense, Sean Clifford, are not good. And you know who's really underrated? Ohio State's defense.
Ohio State's defense
is very confident. So I like the under 61 in this game. Under 60.5, you said now. If you can get that 61, like that. 65% of the bets and 59% of the money are on Ohio State. But the number is rising towards Ohio State. Usually a good sign with that reverse line movement right there. I think that Ohio State can get this done going away. So give me the under 61. Give me Ohio State minus 15.5, minus 16. I think they win like 38-17, something like that. Pretty easy win for them.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of faith in Sean Clifford. I think we'll get to see their backup at some point. We get Oklahoma State at Kansas State. Kansas State is a 1.5-point favorite. I don't know how I feel about this game at all because we saw Kansas State with a backup quarterback, but their backup quarterback looked pretty solid. Spencer Sanders is, they look good against Texas last week. Is this a letdown spot for Oklahoma State on the road?
absolutely, depending on what the Kansas State quarterback situation is. So I'm going to wait until I know more about that. If it is Adrian Martinez and he is able to go full send for me in this game, 91% of the bets and 86% of the money is on Oklahoma State, but the line flipped from them being -1 favorites to +1.5. I was talking about reverse line movement on the last game.
Yeah.
This is the ultimate example of that. Kansas State, even if I didn't know anything about the game and I just understood where the money was coming in, it is upon my principle that I have to bet Kansas State in this game, and I have to do it right now. So I'm going to bet a little bit right now, and then when I hear more about Adrian Martinez, double down for me.
Love that. Love that. Yeah, and Oklahoma State's defense for, I think, Clemson, they're not missing Brett Venables. That defense has looked phenomenal. Oklahoma State is missing Jim Knowles. That defense has not looked anywhere close to what they looked like last year, and obviously Ohio State's defense has significantly improved. What a hell of a hire for the Buckeyes, as much as it pains me to say. We get Wake Forest at Louisville, and not a game that I think is going to be on a ton of college football radar, from a importance standpoint. I legitimately think that we could be looking at a one-loss Wake Forest team at the end of the year. Not that it'll really matter in the grand scheme of things, but when you talk about the 2022 college football season, you're going to be like, wow, Wake Forest went 11-1, but they play at Louisville. They're 4.5 point favorites. Am I dumb for thinking that they just absolutely boat race Louisville? I know what most of the money is on Wake Forest. I think it's 88% of the money's on Wake Forest. Am I wrong here? Should I be on Louisville?
Yes, because 59% of the money is coming back on Louisville, and the line has dropped from 5.5 to 4.5. So people think Louisville is going to be involved in this game. Louisville's defense has actually been sneaky good this year, especially the last couple of weeks. So I think you're going to see the under, which is not usually what you want to do in Wake games, based on how their offense has played thus far this season. But I do think the under 62 is probably a good play if you can get that number in the market right now. I'm probably going to stay away from the line at 4.5, but given the facts of the market, I think that Louisville is going to be a little bit tighter in this game than you would anticipate. So if you are looking to bet Louisville, maybe, again, like we kind of talked about with Washington State, maybe you do that first half plus 2.5, plus 3, and maybe a little first half money line sprinkle and see if you can get Louisville that way instead of playing the full game.
Love that. And I'm seeing the over-under at 62.5 on FanDuel right now. So,
love it. Smash it.
Maybe a little even better value. And then another top 20 tilt, a big game for the SEC. Kentucky at Tennessee. Tennessee is a 12.5 point favorite. Obviously, all the buzz is about Tennessee after that massive, game against Alabama. They blew UT Martin out of the water, which, good for them. I like Kentucky to cover the spread in this game. Will Levis is healthy. I understand why Tennessee is ranked where they are. They are damn good. But every single person in the state of Tennessee is already looking forward to November 5th against Georgia. Kentucky is not. And I'm going to take Kentucky plus the 12.5.
I'm trying to think what I want to do with this game because I have 43% of the bets and 55% of the money is on Tennessee in this game. Kentucky's been bad versus Ole Miss and South Carolina as of late.
Yep.
Their recent form is absolutely terrible. Look-ahead line for this game was -5.5. They do have a good defense, so maybe they're able to keep Tennessee in check here. But whoever scheduled UT Martin after the Alabama game is a fucking genius. Totally take out the sleepy letdown spot.
They need to get an award, whatever trophy they need. Absolute. That is brilliant scheduling. Tennessee could not have been luckier to get that after Alabama. You want to talk about a letdown spot that they avoided? Yeah. They got out clean.
Exactly. So people think that maybe this would be a sleepy spot. They've had 2 weeks. They're on from the Alabama game. I think that now that they see the bigger picture, it's okay, let's just make sure we get out all of these games, get a win. We're going to face Georgia at some point. That's the only game that matters the rest of the season. If we get past Georgia, we're going to be in the playoff. Even if we drop the SEC championship game, we're still probably in the playoff. We're going to make it there. So I don't think it's a look ahead for Georgia. I think it's more like, all right, we're on this path. There's a real shot that we make the playoff. Let's get this out of the way. 12.5 is a lot, but it is at Tennessee. I lean a little towards Tennessee, but I probably won't end up making a play in this game. I just a little too tight.
Hey, sometimes the best bet is the bet you don't make. Jason, do you have any other, it's the Gambling with Gold podcast for a reason. Do you have any other gold for the people before they go check out your podcast? Any other favorite plays for this week?
I would not come on this show without a couple of Goldilocks, my friend. I absolutely got to come with them. All right, here's the ones that I would bet on the board right now. I've actually bet all of these already. Southern Miss, -1 versus Louisiana Lafayette. Lock that one in right now. It's going to be a gross game. It's going to be low scoring. Southern Miss is going to win this game like 24-21, but you're going to cash that -1 ticket. We all go home happy. The other one, Virginia has the worst team I've ever seen. Tony Elliott is absolutely trash as a head coach. Give me my old head coach, Mario Cristobal. I don't care that Tyler Van Dyke is injured. He's not going to play the rest of the season, most likely, because his arm's in a sling at campus. I think they come in as -2 favorites at Virginia and get the win. I think that everybody's really down on this Miami team after the way that they've played, but Virginia is really, really that bad. I think Miami goes in and gets it done as -2. And then give me Missouri +4 out South Carolina. South Carolina, sleepy spot, and this Missouri team has proved that they can play with some of the best in the SEC. So give me Missouri +4 at South Carolina.
Yeah, Missouri has surprisingly put together a really good defensive unit. I think Missouri has one of the better defenses. I think they're probably top 30 in the country defensively. Like they're not bad at all. So can't wait. We have an electric college football weekend ahead of us. Jason, thank you again so much for coming on. All of Jason's links are in the description below, either in the podcast or in the YouTube. You can see his @ is on the screen as well, so be sure to check him out. Jason, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it, man.
Anytime, and before we go, I have one more thing for you, a little surprise for all of your listeners. You go to ChampionsRound. You go to ChampionsRound right now. You download the app. Use the promo code SMASH, all uppercase. $12 free bonus play. Play the Daily Dozen with us. Turn that $12 into $2,400. Tonight, you can do it for $2,400. Tomorrow night will also be $2,400. NBA player props. Go ahead and enjoy that. Play Daily Dozen every day. And I'll announce it here first on the show. We do a leaderboard every month for November. The leaderboard, the one who tops the leaderboard, if you play Daily Dozen every day this month, or for November, so it starts next Tuesday, Joe Burrow, signed helmet on the line. So make sure to come play with Daily Dozen with us at the ChampionsRound app.
Oh, look, I'm already playing as if I didn't need another reason. A Joe Burrow sign. Jason, you know the way to my heart. I appreciate you. Oh, man, absolutely. Download the ChampionsRound app. Use the promo code SMASH. Get that free money, and then win all of Jason's money, because that is
I'm trying to give it away, baby. I'm just trying to give it away to you guys.
Absolutely. We appreciate it, and we will see you guys in the next one.